Hiya! Today is Harry Potter's birthday and J.K. Rowling's. So, today I am going to do the Harry Potter spells tag. I wasn't tagged by anyone. I just wanted to do something to celebrate Harry Potter's birthday. The first spell is Flagrate, and that's a book that you found interesting but that you would like to rewrite. If you had asked me this a couple weeks ago, I would have said I wouldn't rewrite someone else's story. You know, that's their story, and even if I don't like it, I appreciate what they did with it and everything. But then I read Chronos, and it's very short. I think it's independently published. I'm not totally sure. It is such an interesting concept, and it was just filleted to pieces. The execution of it was just painful, like absolutely incredibly painful. I was angry reading it, and I finished it because the concept was so cool and I wanted to see what ended up happening, but I was just so angry about it. I mean, there was stereotypes and minimalizations and reactions that didn't make sense, and the monster itself was kind of stupid. Like, the Chronos is a thriller about a sea monster, basically a Chronosaurus that survived somehow. I love stories like that. I love monster stories and all that stuff, but the execution was awful. And it made me angry, it made me sad, so many emotions, none of them positive. And if it were up to me, I would have done it entirely different. So I don't know that I would do a better job, but I would do it differently, for sure. The next spell is Alohomora, and that's a first book in a series that got you hooked. So I have a couple books for this. The first one would be Alice by Christina Henry. I've talked about this before. I love this book. Like, absolutely adore it. I had my best friend read it, and she said I may have ruined Alice in Wonderland for her for life, but she loved it too. She just, now thinks of the stuff from this book every time. I told her give it time. You'll be able to differentiate the two eventually. I kind of feel bad about it. But anyway, this one was so good. This book was so good. It not only hyped me up for the sequel, but literally anything that she writes, I will read now. No question. The next one is also an Alice retelling, and that's Splintered, which I kind of stuck through with the rest of the series because I love this one so much. I didn't hate the rest of the series like some other people did. I really didn't. I liked the rest of the series, but I didn't love it. But I did stick with it because I loved the characters and I loved this book so much. I had to see the story to its end. But I still enjoyed the other books anyway, so it wasn't really a huge sacrifice. And the other runner-ups, I guess, would be Daughter of Smoke and Bone. As soon as I read this one, I had to read the rest of the series, pretty much immediately. The last one is Cinder. This isn't Cinder. I actually don't have a copy of Cinder for some reason. I have all the rest of the books, but not Cinder. The Lunar Chronicles is another one. The next spell is Accio, and that's a book that you wish you could have right now. And this year there are so many good books coming out that I have a whole list of things that I'm just counting down the days. They're actually in my planner. I haven't pre-ordered many of them yet, but I usually wait to see if I'm committed enough to actually buy it the day of at the store. I should probably pre-order them though. But just to list a few: Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor, Dear Evan Hansen, In an Absent Dream by Seanan McGuire, the new Mira book by Danielle Page, Blade So Black, Sea Witch, which actually comes out this week, I think. It might actually be out today when I post this, so I could actually go get that one. The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Pirates. The next spell is Avada Kedavra, and that's a killer book. I'm going to go once again with Illuminae, not only because it's massive, but also because it causes so many emotions, and it's just so good. It puts so many other books to shame, and on top of that, you fly through it because it's so exhilarating and so captivating. The next spell is Confundo, and that's a book that you found confusing. Before I let go, it's not that I found the book itself confusing. I understood everything that happened and everything. What I found confusing was how the town reacted to the character that died. So a lot of the stuff, I'm trying to talk about it without giving any spoilers. A girl returns to her hometown that she left, very happily left, to see her best friend, but right before she arrives, her best friend dies. Her best friend has bipolar disorder, And just the way that the community reacts to both the main character and the character who died just was very confusing. The whole time I was reading it, it was sort of like, why are they doing that? And that's why it was confusing. The storyline itself was really good, just the community was confusing. The next spell is Expecto Patronum, and that's your spirit animal book. I'm going to go with Alice in Wonderland, not just because it's the book I reach for when I need a pick-me-up, because it's like my comfort book. I love this book. I have read it so many times, I can't even tell you how many times I've read it. I just love it so much, but also because I think the way that I see life is kind of reflected in this book. Things are confusing, words are confusing, people take advantage of the fact that words are confusing. If I could only read one book the rest of my life, it would be this book. So, the next spell is Sectum Sempra, which is a dark and twisted book. And for this, I feel like I could go with any Neil Gaiman book, but this one in particular is very dark and twisty. I think that's why I love it so much. It's like, it seems so normal, and then there's just so many dark and twisty parts, and I love it. And that is The Ocean at the End of the Lane, which is about a grown-up who goes back to their childhood home, going back to this ocean at the end of his lane, which is basically a pond, but when you're a kid, everything seems bigger, so they called it an ocean. It brings all these memories back and all these paranormal events that happened in his childhood, and it's unexpected, and just the first time I read it, I was so shocked at how powerful it was. But like I said, I love Neil Gaiman. I would read pretty much anything by Neil Gaiman. He's dark and twisty just like all the time. The next spell is Expelliarmus, which is a book that took you by surprise. And for that, I'm going to go with Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda. I don't normally like contemporaries. It's rare that I love a contemporary. I almost always need a touch of magic or some sort of fantasy element or something, and this was just 100% contemporary. I loved it so much. It just captivated me. I love the characters. I love the story. I think everyone knows what it's about by now, so I'm not gonna talk about that. I laughed out loud. Becky Albertelli is very good at making you feel genuine emotions for characters, like almost to the point where you forget that they're not real. These are things that could have actually happened to an actual person, and it's really compelling because of that. And I didn't expect to love it quite as much as I did. And the fact that I did end up wanting more really surprised me. The next book is Prior Incantato, and that's the last book you read. I'm currently in the middle of my Harry Potter reread when I'm filming this, so Harry Potter, which feels like a cheat on a Harry Potter spells tag, but it is what it is. The next spell is Ridiculous, which is a funny book that you've read, and for this one I have two, and both authors are kind of related because they've written books together and they were best friends. The first one is Fortunately the Milk by Neil Gaiman. It's short, it's a kid's chapter book, but it's hilarious. I say it's a kid's chapter book, but anyone could read it and find it funny and entertaining. It's not really easy. It's just an enjoyable read. It's brain candy, 100% brain candy. I have read it upwards of 20 times, and still every single time I read it, I crack up. It just is hilarious to me. The other one is basically any Discworld novel, but specifically the first two, Color of Magic and The Light Fantastic. Rincewind, the main character in these two, is hilarious because he's just a hot mess. Terry Pratchett just has, I don't know if our senses of humor just kind of click, but everything he does is funny, I guess, or everything he did is funny. His depictions of characters are so unique and like tongue-in-cheek, and his depiction of death, the character, is one of the best depictions of death that I've ever read in my life. The next spell is Sonorous, a book that you think everyone should know about. And my answer to this one, I think most people on BookTube know about, but I feel like people who don't regularly watch BookTube don't, and so I think it still counts. And I'm going with Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too by Jomny Soon. It's just such a beautiful book, and it really examines human nature. It discusses mental health disorders in a very healthy and illuminating way, and it's digestible. It's just a couple, pencil drawings or pen drawings, I guess, and a couple words on each page, so it's such an easy thing to get through. and yet not that many people that I know of outside of BookTube have heard of it, let alone read it. So I just really wish more people would read it. And he's now illustrating Lin-Manuel Miranda's tweets, and that's coming out as a book soon, so that's super exciting. Maybe that'll like point people towards his first book too. In any case, I'm just gonna keep shoving it at my friends and telling them they have to read it. The next spell is Obliviate, and that's a book or a spoiler you would like to forget having read. I don't really mind spoilers that much. I don't think I've ever been spoiled for something that I really wanted to be surprised by. Most things I end up spoiling myself, or I ask people I know who have read it to spoil me, because I kind of like to know what's going to happen. Like, there are certain things that I've been reading and I either wasn't enjoying or it was causing me some anxiety, so I would tell the person who recommended it to me, tell me what happens, and when they resisted, I would tell them I'm not finishing the book unless I know how it ends. Like, I'm not finishing the book unless it ends the way I want it to. So spoilers don't really bother me. The next spell is Imperio, and that's a book that you read for school. Obviously there's a ton that you could do for this, but I'm going to go with A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I don't mind having to have read this for school. I actually love Tale of Two Cities. I like a lot of the books that came to mind when I thought of the books that I had to read for school, probably because I didn't keep the ones that I didn't like. The only one I can think of that I didn't really love was Billy Budd by Herman Melville, but it was really short, so whatever. But Tale of Two Cities is actually one of my favorite books, probably of all time. I think it's a really powerful book, and if you haven't read it, you should try it. Charles Dickens is hard to get through. He's paid by the word. When you're sitting there wondering why he used like 4 different adjectives, that's why. But it's a fantastic story, and it's really powerful. It will make you feel a lot of emotions. It'll really make you think. And the last spell is Crucio, which is a book that was painful to read. And I could go again with Cronus, but I will use a different one, even though Cronus was probably the most painful read I've ever had in my life. I did finish it though. This one I did not finish, and that's Swan's Way by Marcel Proust. I started reading it actually because of Gilmore Girls. There's a scene in there where Max tells Lorelai that everyone should read Swan's Way. So I was like, I wonder why. So I picked it up and I started reading it. I think I got to page 28 and then I just gave up. If you can see, this is one paragraph and it started on the previous page and goes on another half a page. So there's one paragraph that's literally 3 pages. And the sentences are really long and convoluted, and it's overly complex to the point that you stop enjoying it. And I don't even know what it's about. I think it's about a man who was basically sick and stuck in bed or something. I'm not totally sure. I do plan to finish reading it at some point in my life, but that time is not now because there are so many other books that I really feel I need to get to. And I don't have the time to dedicate to a book that I didn't enjoy, like not even a little bit. So that is the Harry Potter spells tag. It's Harry Potter's birthday, so I feel like I should go have some cake or something. I don't know. As always, there are so many books and so little time. So I'm gonna go read, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!